just as a little bit of background, when you have a position of power, whether you're in the majority or in the minority, there are these like special perks that you get. And some of those perks are, this is all by tradition, there are these little offices tucked away in various corners in the Capitol. And so if you're in a leadership position in your caucus, you traditionally get one of these, they call them hideaways, in the Capitol rather than having to go all the way back to the office buildings, which are, you know, attached to the Capitol, but are not in that same building. Okay, so Pelosi obviously had one of these. I don't know what it looked like, but it was probably one of the more grand ones because of her level of prestige. Put this up on the screen. Mere hours after taking over as Speaker pro tem with the ouster of Kevin McCarthy, this dude, Representative Patrick McHenry, who's kind of like the placeholder running the votes for the next speaker, et cetera, ordered former Speaker Nancy Pelosi to vacate her office by Wednesday. He said, please vacate the space tomorrow. The room will be rekeyed. They go on to say Pelosi's currently using a hideaway office, which only a handful of members receive. Given that she is Speaker Emerita, McCarthy allowed Pelosi to occupy that space. McHenry, who is a McCarthy ally, is clearly less keen on it. There was additional reporting that also Steny Hoyer, who also benefited from one of these hideaway offices, has also been informed that he needs to get out of there. It's unclear whether Pelosi will actually be able to comply with this in time because she is in California for the funeral of Dianne Feinstein. But again, in terms of how this is all working out for me, am I sad to see Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer kicked out of their little special offices? No, no, I am not.
I loved, Krystal, the amount of proclaim. Like, oh my God, she's kicked out of her office. I'm like, okay, well, why does she even have an office? You know, in the first place, all this stupid courtesy nonsense is ridiculous. By the way, these hideaway offices, if you ever get the chance, they are really nice. I do absolutely think that if anybody has the chance, they should be able to see them. I've taken a couple of meetings in them in the past, and they're pretty cool because they're all in the basement and all of that. And as you said, the main reason that people want them is the actual offices, as we all learned during the Jamal Bowman thing, are across the street from the Capitol.
And it is kind of a pain in the ass.
Well, especially
it's a little far.
Well, especially if you're in Rayburn. So for those who don't know, the Rayburn House office building is, I think it might be a more than a half-mile walk actually from the Capitol, which is a pain whenever you're running for votes. So there's actually a little subway like that people take in the House of Representatives. It's kind of fun if you're ever here and you're a tourist. You should go do it. And you can come from the Rayburn House office building to the floor. That's where senators also have one from the Hart Senate office building, which is similarly far from it. But that's why they all want a Capitol office, because then they could just be in the U.S. Capitol already. So it's much more a matter of like pain in the ass factor and all of that. That said, I'm not really sure why the former Speaker of the House deserves an office, and especially the former Democratic whip. Pelosi was like, well, I let Speaker Hastert, whose name we probably shouldn't talk about anymore, actually have an office whenever he was out of power. But the thing is, Krystal, is Pelosi is not just a former speaker. She's not even the former current leader of the party.
Right.
Hakeem Jeffries is the only one who should have office space in the Capitol. Traditionally, it's really only leadership. She doesn't, as far as I know, have an official position of leadership in the Democratic Party. You're just another member at this point, unless you're the secret leader of the Democratic Party, oh, right, then it actually would make sense. Oh, now I'm starting to understand where things come from.
Also, people may think differently from the outside, and all of the office space in the separate office buildings are also allocated by like seniority.
Yes, all seniority, yeah.
So if you're a freshman member of the House, your office is actually really shitty.
Yeah, it's usually in Rayburn or in Longworth, and it's very small.
You would think, you know, it's members of the House, oh, you're in the Senate, you're a member of Congress, whatever. You would think there might be some grant. No, they're just like very standard and actually quite small office spaces where you walk into one room, there's like a secretary sitting right there, and then usually there's like one small office over here, one small office over there, and that's it. So that's why they really covet these like special perks of the hideaway office and whatever. So all of this though speaks to the fact that, and I think this is personally hilarious, that the Republicans are furious that Democrats did not rescue Kevin McCarthy's lame ass, which it's like, to me, why would they? Like, I see no reason why they would rescue him. And also, it doesn't even seem to me like he wanted to be rescued, because he did not offer them a single thing in terms of trying to make a deal. And there was 100% a deal to be made. You don't think if he offered them Ukraine aid that a significant number of them wouldn't have come over and held their nose or whatever and voted McCarthy back in? Absolutely not. So yeah, they absolutely would have taken that deal. So it's not even clear to me that he really wanted to be rescued because, as I laid down before, he was in an impossible bind. There were really no decent moves back on the chessboard. So anyway, I find it hilarious that out of this whole thing, which is all total intra-Republican Party stuff, that there are a bunch of people on the right and in the mainstream press who've decided that the real culprits here are the Democrats. Here's Fox and Friends taking exactly this line of argument. Take a listen.
So the Democrats, under the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries, wrestled with whether or not to support and save the speakership of Kevin McCarthy. Ultimately, they decided not to. And I read somewhere that apparently in the morning, as you can see right there, every one of the Democrats voted against McCarthy.
That's what you get for trusting a Democrat.
Bingo.
Right?
I know.
Yeah, they tell you one thing and then they pull back and do something else.
Instead of winning over your caucus, instead of getting the 12 appropriations bill, instead of getting term limits, which you promised, you trusted the Democrats to save your tail. You trusted the Democrats to save you with the CR bill. I mean, it's no wonder why he's not speaker.
And very much in the same...
I kind of agree with Lawrence there at the end.
I mean, but again, there was nothing really that McCarthy could do at this point, because he put this insane appropriations bill on the floor that, by the way, a bunch of moderate Republicans ended up voting for, like, 40% cuts to Social Security office or whatever, which still ends up failing because it wasn't far enough. So it just doesn't seem to me like there was really any move left for him to make. And in the same line of argumentation, Matt Lewis over at the Daily Beast put this up on the screen. You can't blame Democrats for the blow that right-wing bomb throwers landed on Kevin McCarthy, but what you can say is they failed to do the right thing on behalf of the American people. And I just think this completely ignores the fact that, number one, this is all intra-Republican Party stuff, and number two, whether it's McCarthy, whether it's Scalise, whether it's Jim Jordan, whether it's anyone except for Donald Trump, honestly, the dynamics are going to be the same.
Yes.
Kevin McCarthy was not going to be able to bring a Ukraine aid vote to the floor. That ship had sailed. So I don't know what is the loss that we're suffering here. I don't know what the grand stakes are that, we failed the American people on and Nancy Pelosi failed the American people on. It just all seems incredibly silly to me.
Well, McCarthy in particular seemed very bitter. He said that Pelosi had told him privately that they would back him if there was ever a motion to vacate. I once again return to, why is he having this conversation with Pelosi and not with Hakeem Jeffries, who is the actual leader of the Democratic Party? But hey, apparently that's where the deal is. Get me. Then you also, why would you assume that that would be the case? But the reason why, Krystal, that he couldn't bargain with them is what kind of speaker does he look like to the GOP when you had to rely on the Democrats to save you? If you bargain Ukraine aid like that up on the table, you're dead amongst the base. The other thing is, and this is why he made the correct call, in my opinion, by offering them nothing, and they also made the correct call. Well, it depends, actually. I'm curious what you think. Do you think they made the correct call? Because they effectively, at this point, have guaranteed that Ukraine aid is 10 times harder to get passed.
But again,
they also guaranteed...
I still don't think it was yes, I think they made the right call because they get to enjoy watching the chaos and Republicans rip each other to shreds. And, Matt Gaetz is getting accused of all kinds of wild things on cable news. I mean, it's a total shit show over there. So, of course, they love that. Ukraine aid was not happening. I think that's just so clear at this point, right? There was no... Matt Gaetz ousted McCarthy over the rumor that there was perhaps in the future some secret deal over Ukraine.
Yes.
McCarthy was not going to be able to bring this to the floor. So, yeah, there was nothing. They're not losing anything in this deal, effectively, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, you're probably right. I do think that they effectively guaranteed a shutdown in November. I could be wrong. We could have a similar last-minute thing, but you think Jim Jordan's not willing to shut down the government? That guy literally would be willing to crash the entire debt ceiling. He doesn't care. If he wins, Scalise, too. Scalise is much more of a actual conservative on those issues than McCarthy really. McCarthy didn't really believe in anything. That was honestly to his benefit, because he was like, look, I don't care. What does the caucus want? They're like, okay, we'll go with that. McConnell was frankly a much more ideological actor than Kevin McCarthy ever was. Kevin McCarthy cared about his majority. He cared about his name. He cared about that little thing that says Speaker McCarthy above his door. He cared about the portrait. And he also cared about raising a ton of money. These other guys are a lot more ideological. So I think you're probably right in terms of shutdown, in terms of Ukraine, especially on an ineffective an effective measure. And, honestly, if they're Republicans and the Republicans were going to quote unquote save Pelosi or even Jeffries, I would tell them the same thing. I'd be like, no, screw them. Let them flail and twist in the wind.
Yeah.
That's politically, it's a good thing. That's what you want the country to be focused on at the very least. So, from that perspective, and even also what, you think the Dems are going to let you get something, through the floor? No, it's not going to happen. Especially if we're talking vice versa in terms of Republican priorities like border security or something. It's like, yeah, if they control the House, they're totally going to trade that for you. They never would.
I mean, imagine an alternate universe where the progressives actually had some balls and actually challenged Pelosi and, had some real demands that they were going to make and whatever. You think the Republicans would bail Nancy Pelosi?
Never.
It's a preposterous idea.
Yeah, good point.
So I don't know why anyone would think that, and it's a lot of this is personal too. I mean, McCarthy, right after this, he avoids the shutdown and, effectively does a deal with Democrats to just continue with the spending levels as they are and to say, okay, we're not doing Ukraine aid for now. He goes on the Sunday shows and blames the Democrats for the situation. Like, you think that engenders a lot of goodwill where they feel any compunction to save your ass when it's on the line? Absolutely not. So, yeah, I think it's sort of preposterous, this idea that, it's really the Democrats' fault, that they should have saved him, and that it really makes that much of a difference in terms of how the future scenarios in terms of Ukraine aid, in terms of government shutdown, are going to play out. Because it's really, I think one thing that's very clear, the speaker is not in control of this caucus. So whoever it is, they're going to be subject to the same whims and pressures. There's one more piece of this that I think is amazing and hilarious, which is the problem solvers caucus, which are some of the most annoying corporate shills, bipartisan in Congress, who are mostly solving problems for rich people. They're apparently in chaos over the fact that Democrats did not rescue Kevin McCarthy. Put this up on the screen. This is per Axios. House Bipartisan Caucus risk collapse after McCarthy ouster. Republicans in the Problem Solvers Caucus are weighing quitting the bipartisan group after Democrats opted against helping former Speaker Kevin McCarthy keep his leadership position on Tuesday. Why it matters. GOP members in the group are furious. The Republicans say he was punished for doing the right thing after advancing a stopgap funding bill on a bipartisan basis. So we could also have the beneficial outcome of the annoying, terrible Problem Solvers Caucus falling apart. So that would be positive as well, in my opinion.
There's always a silver lining. There's always a silver lining.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.